Welcome everyone to another episode of Counterfactual Gaming, the gaming channel where if there's something historical to do in a video game, we don't do it. Now, before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that if you like what you see here and you really enjoy the content you're seeing, go ahead and give a like and a sub to the video. And if you have any questions or comments or complaints about how poorly I'm doing Barbarossa here, just go ahead and leave a comment down below. I'll be sure to answer your comments as best as I can. Although I can't promise I'll have a good answer for why I left this port untaken, even as I've pushed past Riga. Now, today we are doing something very sneaky and very special on YouTube. Now, I'm a YouTuber, and I have under 500 subscribers, so I know a lot about the platform, and I can tell you all the little tips and tricks about YouTube. One of those tips and tricks is that if you are a YouTuber who does video game content, you are contractually obligated by advertisers to create a tier list video at some point in your channel's existence. And that is what we're going to do today, folks. Today, we are going to do a tier list. Now, the actual genesis of this video was me looking at the content of some other people. Feedback Gaming and 71 Cloak, whose content I actually really enjoy. And looking at how they examine ideas behind tier lists. And what I ended up discovering was that they had a lot of good ideas, and some other YouTubers had some good ideas, but I wanted to take this in a different direction. So we're going to have a tier list, but as you can see by the graphic, it's not going to be a normal tier list. Because let's be honest, I can't do anything normal when it comes to gaming. Let me give an explanation for this tier list. Instead of going from like S tier to F tier and ranking things by letter grades, we're not going to do that. Why aren't we going to do that? Well, because, one, that's just what everyone else does, so why bother watching this video if everyone else can rank things from S to F tier? But I also think that ranking support companies in that way, while it's easy for people to understand, it doesn't provide any real nuance into how support companies work. A lot of people complain that most support companies are bad. And I understand that feeling from people in the community. They'll be like, oh, this support company's bad, or this other support company's bad, or there's only 4 good support companies. But that's not really true. It's better to say that a lot of support companies have very specific use cases, which means that they're not the kind of support companies you would want to use all the time, but that doesn't mean they're bad, they're just only good at certain jobs. So my support company tier list, instead of it going from like S tier to F tier, instead runs like you see it. There are the support companies you must have, there are the support companies who are gimmicks, support companies that fall into a specific niche, support companies that I'm meh about, and then yes, there are some support companies that are so bad or have so few use cases that they go in my but why though tier. Hold on there, Counterfactual. It's Counterfactual from the future. I'm going to interrupt you there for just a moment. See, I'd originally planned this video to spend a lot of time discussing the details of how these various support companies operate. But I realized that that video was going to be about 45 minutes long and it was really boring. And so instead, I'm going to just provide a couple of sentences of explanation on each of the support companies, and then we're just going to wrap it up. We're going to see just how short I can make this video. MP support companies. They're a support company with the stats of an infantry battalion, soft attack, defense, and so on, but they don't have the org or hit points of an infantry battalion. So MP support companies are basically a worse infantry battalion that has no whip. Hospital companies are a support company that seems like a good idea, but the problem with a hospital support company is for countries that are poor, they are too expensive to use in their divisions to preserve manpower. And for countries that are rich, you've got all the manpower you probably need, and the savings you get from the support company wouldn't be that much in the big scheme of things. I should also point out that the benefits to division experience for the hospital support company might seem useful, But at the end of the day, a rich country can just rotate divisions to the rear and exercise them back up if they need to get their XP back to where it needs to be. You don't need a hospital support company to preserve division XP in most cases. Signals companies go in meh tier. Why do I put them in meh tier? It's because the initiative bonus from the Signals company is useful in certain reinforcement meme situations, but other than that, it's kind of lackluster. You get more reinforcement chance directly from doctrines and from the radio technology that is the prerequisite to the Signals company than you do from like tier 1 Signals companies or even tier 2 Signals companies. Now, that doesn't mean it's useless. If you're going for a build that maximizes reinforcement chance, and especially if you're using a lot of really cheap divisions, then yeah, I can see a point to Signals, but to me, they're just not that handy to have in general. In niche tier, we've got 3 support companies, one of which I bet is a favorite among a lot of players. We've got support rockets, AT guns, and recon. And yes, I'm going to group all recon into one category. Just bear with me. Support rockets. They would rank as must-have tier if they didn't require a 1940 tech, and if they weren't inferior in soft attack to tube artillery, unless you have researched like all the rocket techs in the game. That's the only time they sort of catch up to support artillery in terms of soft attack. I should also point out that support rocket companies require more tungsten than regular tube artillery does. So, niche. If you're going to be emphasizing soft attack from support companies and you're using superior firepower and you're doing a bunch of rocket techs, yeah, definitely grab support rockets. Otherwise, not that important to your build. Support AT is niche and not must-have, simply because against AI divisions, you may not need that much piercing at that cost. And in other situations, if you're thinking to yourself, oh, I really need piercing against the enemy, support AT may not be your answer. You may instead want actual tank destroyers or line AT, especially in some multiplayer games, depending on the mods you use and the rules you have. You may want to have fewer dedicated anti-tank divisions that stack piercing and hard attack with like line AT, a couple of line ATs, and you feed them into where Panzer spearheads are, as opposed to just putting AT guns everywhere. Recon support companies. Now, recon support companies provide some nice speed bonuses in both open terrain and in some other terrains, depending on which recon company you're using. In that sense, they are a nice niche support company to have. If you have fast divisions, give them some recon so they can go even faster. However, infantry divisions do not need that speed boost. But what about the tactics boost, you say? Reconnaissance companies provide a reconnaissance value that should make it easier for your generals to select tactics. And that is true, that is what recon companies do, but I'm going to give you a little secret on why I don't put recon companies everywhere. You cannot fire a tactic to counter an enemy general's tactic if your country doesn't know the countering tactic, or if your general or divisions do not meet the requirements to fire that tactic. So, that puts recon companies in niche tier, where they get used in certain situations instead of being used all the time. In Gimmick Tier, we have 2 support companies that I'm sure a lot of players really love. Maintenance and Flame Tanks. And I'm grouping all Flame Tanks into a single category for the purposes of this video. Maintenance companies. On the surface, maintenance companies seem really good. They increase reliability and they let you capture enemy equipment. What more could you want? The reality, though, is for maintenance companies, you only need that reliability increase if you are using tanks with really low reliability. Yes, it's nice to have trucks and infantry kits have better reliability. But remember, the maintenance company costs support equipment. So you don't want to sacrifice support equipment in a maintenance company that's going to take combat damage, they're going to take attrition damage. in order to make infantry kits take less reliability damage. That wouldn't make any sense. But if you're using tanks that have ultra low reliability, you put your maintenance companies in there, you unlock the tier 2 maintenance company to make a certain module on your tanks to make them more reliable, then it starts to make sense because the support equipment costs a lot less than a really expensive tank with low reliability. What about that capture ratio, you say? Well, the capture ratio is nice to have, but I think if you're going to do capture ratio for maintenance companies, you want to stack it with generals or country-specific modifiers that improve capture ratio. Don't just do a generic, I throw maintenance companies in and we just capture lots of enemy equipment kind of a thing. Don't do that. Flame tanks. On the surface, flame tanks seem like a great way to make Space Marines, but I'm here to tell you that if you look at the stats on a heavy flame tank, and then you look at the stats on a really cheap interwar heavy tank battalion or tank destroyers, you begin to realize that the stat nerf on the flame tank support company makes flame tanks really not that great for doing Space Marines. So if you're going to use flame tanks, and I use them with some frequency, you want to use them just for the terrain and combat bonuses they have. I don't want you to look at them and try to make Space Marines. If you're going to use flame tanks, look at terrain, look at combat bonuses, and maybe throw dozer blades on them for extra entrenchment. Go cheap. Don't go expensive. Don't try to make fancy Space Marines out of them. Just use them like you would engineers. In must-have tier, we've got 4 support companies. One of them, though, the log company, has an asterisk, and we're going to get to why that is. Log companies. I love logistics companies. If you're fighting as a major power in Europe, you will consistently find that you are supply capped on the front, even though you're near supply hubs, and even though those supply hubs are not bottlenecked by their railways. Use logistics companies. But the reason I have an asterisk on it is because minor powers generally cannot afford logistics companies, and they are not fighting on supply capped fronts. Also, if you're fighting in weird theaters, the Amazon jungle, French Indochina, places where supply hubs just don't exist, log companies don't help you there because you're out of supply for reasons that have nothing to do with the logistics company. So in those situations, a log company doesn't do you any good. Engineers. They are a wonderful support company. They provide combat bonuses in a variety of terrains. They provide amphibious bonuses. They provide entrenchment for divisions that are defending. There is almost no reason to not use engineering companies in every kind of division that's fighting. Support AA. One of the best support companies in the entire game. This is another support company that I think everyone should be using. It does 4 things. It shoots down enemy planes that are on ground attack. It reduces the incoming damage from ground attack. It reduces the air superiority penalty from fighting under yellow or red air. And it provides heart attack and piercing against ground units. In fact, AA guns are so good that support AA can render the entire production run of Panzer IIs and Panzer Is and all the BT 5s and 7s that the Soviet Union has in stock or makes completely obsolete. And now we come to support artillery. And I have only one thing to say about support artillery. It has the highest ratio of soft attack to IC cost of anything else in the game. And I think that about wraps things up today. Wanted to thank you for taking time to watch this video. If you've got any questions or comments about support companies, go ahead and put them in the comments section of the video. I do try to answer all the questions people put into my comments section. And if you have your own ideas and use cases for various support companies, please, by all means, list those in the comments section as well. I'd love to hear about them because there really is no such thing as a support company which there is no use case for. There are only support companies that have so few use cases that I question why you would use them in the game. Until next time, I hope you're having a pleasant day. Here, for once, it's raining, but it's a good rain because it makes the weather cooler, and that's just fine by me. I hope things are cooler where you're living. I hope you have a pleasant day.